Well, my friends, the liberal woke media, they're at it once again. Do not believe these polls that show that Donald Trump is losing. We might as well go ahead and quit, and Kamala Harris is the next president of the United States. Don't believe it. And today, I'm going to show you proof why.
The Harris-Walz campaign arrives in Chicago with some polling momentum behind them. We mentioned that at the top. The most notable result being from ABC News and the Washington Post, showing her leading nationally the former president by 3 points, which is outside the margin of error, and Robert Kennedy Jr. with 5%. But again, that's the national poll. Right now, I want to expand the discussion to how state-by-state polling suggests more potential ways the election may go, particularly for the Harris-Walz ticket, more ways for it possibly to win in November, certainly more than President Biden had just a few weeks ago. CNN's John King joins the panel and me from the Magic Wall. So take a look. Show us the different paths to 270 now that the landscape has changed.
Just a remarkably different race, Anderson. You were just talking with the panel when we were in Milwaukee, right? Here's where we have the map right now. Dark red is solid Republican, light red leans Republican. Same for the blues. Likely, solid Democratic, leans Democratic. Harris at the moment, 225 to Trump's 219. In Milwaukee, Joe Biden had one narrow path left, and that was win the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And even if he did that, he would have to pick up Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. And I can tell you that was the Democrats' only path in Milwaukee. And that was an unlikely path because we knew he was in trouble and Trump was in control. Harris right now can do that. You can see that in the state polling. You can see that in the return of African Americans, younger voters, suburban voters who were just leaving Biden back to Harris. You can see that path right there, but that's not the only path she has. African American support has jumped as well, including African American women. So the Democrats believe tough, but they believe North Carolina would be in play. Georgia, Biden was probably toast in Georgia. They believe that's in play. Now, I'm not saying she's going to win all these. I'm just saying that you have Arizona and Nevada back in place. So you can have a scenario where she gets well above 300. At the same time, these states are all very competitive, as David Urban was just noting. So let's just say, for example, you don't get all the Arab American voters back and the young voters, and Trump wins Michigan. Well, look, Harris still has opportunities, right? If North Carolina stays Republican, Harris still has opportunities to win it. So the bottom line is that Joe Biden had one very narrow path when we were in Milwaukee. Kamala Harris has 5, 6, 7 different ways you can get her to 270.
Now, my friends, like we've talked about before in my last couple of videos, Donald Trump has many paths to victory. Don't believe this nonsense from CNN and the other legacy media telling you that, hey, Kamala Harris is nothing but a shoo-in, because it's not true. I have showed you on numerous times that Donald Trump has many paths to victory, not so much for Kamala Harris. And folks, let me tell you, if you think that a radical liberal like Kamala Harris, somebody who clearly has been hiding Joe Biden's decline, someone who wants to take away your gun rights, someone who's responsible for all the inflation, someone who's supposed to be the border czar, who has opened up our country, all of these illegal aliens coming in, 12 million plus illegals have come into our country, and these people want you to believe she's a shoo-in. I'm telling you, it's BS, and I'm going to show you why as we go through this video.
That means Donald Trump has those too. But when you have those possibilities, Anderson, it just changes the composition of the campaign. She can now target those states. Donald Trump has to spend money in places. A couple of weeks ago, he didn't think he was going to have to spend money. We are in a brand new world.
A brand new world. How about that? It wasn't 1 month ago that the Democrats were crying, and they were kind of basically suicidal. They were looking to slit their own wrists, trying to figure out what was going on and what they were going to do about President Joe Biden. And of course, we all know there was a de facto coup. They threw Joe Biden out simply because his poll numbers were so low and so much in the tank. They knew they did not stand a chance against former President Donald Trump. And now all this radical media wants you to believe that Kamala Harris is beating the daylights out of Donald Trump. And that's not the case. The legacy media loves to take these snapshot polls and shove it down our throats. Every election cycle, they parade these so-called polls, basically telling us that, hey, this is the final word in who's winning and who's losing. But my friends, as we have seen many times over and over again, these polls constantly show Donald Trump underperforming the actual results. They always underestimate Donald Trump and Donald Trump's performance. And it's not just by accident. There are some very real reasons why this keeps happening. And it's not just a fluke, it's a pattern of the legacy radical media. Let's start off with one very important fact you need to remember. These polls often oversample Democratic voters. voters. It's really just that simple. That's right. When you dig into the numbers, you'll see that the sampling often includes way more Democrats than Republicans. And it's not just about party affiliation. We're talking about the fact that they're sampling individuals who have consistently voted Democrat election after election. A lot of times they take these Democrats and they label them as independents, and they are not independents. They may self-identify as independents, but basically they are Democrats in the clothing of an independent. It's just that simple. And the pollsters know this, and they are willfully ignorant, to be polite about it. They don't really want to know how someone has voted, say, since 2000. They simply ask them, are you a Republican, Democrat, Independent? And they take their word at it without any follow-up to decipher whether or not they are truly an independent or what their true party affiliation is. And let's not forget, these polls take a very small sample and say, hey, this small sample represents the millions and millions of voters in this particular state. A few hundred people here, a few thousand people there. How is that supposed to accurately represent an entire state with tens of millions of people? To me, it's kind of like trying to predict the weather in New York simply by taking a sampling way down here in Florida. It's impossible. It's nonsense. It's garbage. It is the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. And remember this, it's natural that when a new candidate comes to light, or they pick their running partner, or they have, like the Democrats are having right now in Chicago, they have their national convention. It is normal and expected that there are bumps as far as the polling goes, in which their poll numbers should increase to some degree. Now, I don't want you to completely take my word for this. I want you to listen to this video that is ran by the Rasmussen report and listen to what they say about all these odd poll numbers that are going on right now.
So why did this happen? Well, I can tell you our numbers here are still holding up the aggregate. There's a few other pollsters showing Trump winning. But in my opinion, the real issue is this. All of a sudden, a week after Kamala Harris got anointed, the polling industry got super uninterested in figuring out the state of the race. Everybody tripped all over themselves to poll between July 21st, when she was selected, and August 4th. There were a ton of polls, and about as many polls as there were through most of June and July. We're talking about, 8 to 13, 14 polls. Now, all of a sudden, and I will say that this chart was produced on the 14th. There have been another poll or two. But basically, in the last 2 weeks here, week and a half, there's been like 3 or 4 non-Rasmussen reports, national general election polls. It's almost like the entire industry went right into the field as soon as Kamala Harris was getting her bounce, liked the results they got, and then said, I think we're done here. And that's been pretty effective, because what it's allowed them to do is flip the betting market, because it's trading on old information. It's also allowed them to be very selective about what gets put into the national news media cycle. You can look at what happened last Sunday with the carefully selected 3 states that New York Times Siena put out that everybody was freaking out about. But at the end of the day, there have not really been that many polls put out. And in fact, in the last couple polls that put out, we've put polls out showing Trump up. Fox News has put polls out showing Trump up. It's really not a clear Kamala Harris is leading narrative as the mainstream media would have you believe. And in our opinion, that's election interference.
There you go. Directly from Rasmussen Reports. This is their YouTube channel that I got this information from, and even they are shocked. It has to do with poor selection. They're simply not doing their job, not taking a lot of polls, and they are interpreting the data the way they want to interpret the data. It is the reason why I have always trusted this particular poll more than any other poll, because these people are trying to get the actual truth out there. And if you look at their polling result, they are, hey, these polls are not right. We showed Donald Trump with a very comfortable margin. It should be similar to the difference between Biden and Trump versus Camilla and Trump. No way should there be that type of a huge disparity in the polls simply because they changed out a candidate, and a candidate is the other candidate's vice president. They're effectively the same ticket as far as the polling are concerned. And if there is a change, there's no way to logically, critically explain the nonsense that's going on right now. So please don't believe it. So when you see these polls and you hear the media over and over and over again saying, hey, Trump is losing and Kamala Harris, she's running away with it, don't believe it. Take a step back and critically think about this yourself. The establishment does not want you to know the truth. They are pushing a narrative that is solely designed to demoralize Trump supporters and to make each and every one of us think, make each and every one of us feel that this election is over and Kamala Harris has this in the bag. But all of this could not be further from the truth. You hear it said often, and it is true, the only poll that really matters is the poll they take on election day. And for quick reference, remember, back in 2016, every single poll except 2 polls out of like 300 polls said that Donald Trump was going to lose to Hillary Clinton. And of course, that did not materialize. Until election day, my friends, do not be fooled by the spin. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. We cannot sit on our hands. We cannot just sit down and not get up and speak up and talk about these issues. We might have to have some uncomfortable conversations with our family, our friends, the people closest to us. But it's important that we have this dialogue, that we have these conversations, we exchange these ideas with one another, because this election is extremely consequential and we cannot take it for granted. We cannot set this election out. My friends, let me know if you agree or disagree. Please put in the comments below. Let me know your opinion on these polls. Do you see it the way that I see it? Do you see it the way that Rasmussen sees it? I think it's pretty clear. I think the evidence is very clear. Something is seriously wrong and seriously skewed in these polls, and we should take it with a very serious grain of salt. I always like to say, my friends, keep that mind free, never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.